Hello again, my champions. Welcome to the Self-Help Podcast, your weekly dose of motivation every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As usual, I am Zip Pham, the creator of this podcast and your companion on the path of life transformation. Here you will discover all the right tools and the right mindsets to help you master your personal growth. Every week we unlock science-backed strategies to help you master yourself, grow stronger, and level up in life. And before we dive into today's episode, I want you to know that everything we cover, the resources, free templates, and actionable guides, they are all waiting for you right in the video description below. So do not stress about taking notes, just listen, absorb, and let us get into it. Today we are talking about something that almost everyone has struggled with at some point in their lives. How to really, truly overcome laziness for good. There is an ancient proverb that says, "On the path of the successful, you will never find the footprints of the lazy." And when I first heard this, I remember thinking, yeah, that makes sense. But then I also remember sitting on my couch one afternoon, laptop open, to-do list literally staring at me, and yet nothing. My body felt heavy, like I was glued to the cushions. My mind felt foggy, like trying to see through thick morning mist. The distance between where I was sitting and what I needed to do, it felt like an ocean I could not cross. And here is the thing. It was not that I did not care about my goals. It was not that I lacked ambition. In that moment, I simply felt paralyzed by this invisible force that kept me stuck, scrolling through my phone instead of working on the things that actually mattered. Laziness. Or at least that is what I called it back then. Growing up in an Asian household, laziness was not just discouraged, it was almost treated as a moral failing, like you had done something deeply wrong. My parents, who worked relentlessly, absolutely relentlessly to build a better life, they could not understand why anyone would choose comfort over progress. Lazy people do not succeed, they would say. Hard work is the only path forward. And I believed them. I still do in many ways. And yet here I was, someone who understood the value of hard work intellectually, someone who knew what needed to be done, but I could not seem to translate that understanding into consistent action. It was frustrating, confusing, and honestly a little bit shameful. What I have learned since then, through years of studying Western psychology, behavioral science, and personal development, combined with the wisdom I grew up with in my Asian upbringing, is that what we call laziness, what we casually label as being lazy, it is rarely about moral character or willpower. It is almost always about something deeper, something we can actually understand, address, and ultimately overcome. This episode is not about shaming you for feeling lazy. I am not here to make you feel worse about yourself. This is about understanding why you feel that way and giving you practical, science-backed strategies to overcome laziness permanently. Not through willpower alone, because willpower runs out, but through systems, mindset shifts, and behavioral changes that actually work for real human beings living real lives. Because here is the truth that took me years to accept. You are not lazy. You are stuck. And being stuck is a solvable problem. So let us dive into understanding what is really happening beneath the surface when we feel lazy, and more importantly, what we can do about it. Before we can learn how to overcome laziness, we need to understand what laziness actually is, because I promise you it is not what you think it is. In Western psychology, what we casually label as laziness is typically a symptom of deeper issues. We are talking about fear, overwhelm, unclear goals, low energy, or a dysregulated nervous system. In Eastern philosophy, particularly in Taoist traditions that I have studied over the years, what appears as inaction often stems from being out of alignment with your natural rhythm or pursuing goals that do not resonate with your true self. Both perspectives, East and West, offer valuable insights, and I think the magic happens when we bring them together. Let me share something I discovered that changed everything for me. Laziness is often a protection mechanism, not a character flaw. Read that again in your mind. A protection mechanism. Your brain is designed, literally wired through millions of years of evolution, to conserve energy. From an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors who conserved energy during times of scarcity, they survived. Those who expended energy unnecessarily, they did not make it. This ancient programming still runs in the background of your modern brain, even though you are not hunting for survival anymore, even though you have got a refrigerator full of food, and you are listening to this podcast probably in a comfortable space. When your brain perceives a task as threatening, unclear, or unlikely to succeed, it activates this conservation mode. You experience it as not feeling like it or lacking motivation. But underneath that surface feeling, your brain is actually trying to protect you from potential failure, rejection, or wasted resources. This is why willpower alone rarely works to overcome laziness. You are fighting against millions of years of evolutionary programming with nothing but conscious decision-making. That is not a fair fight, my friend. That is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Now, not all laziness is the same, and understanding which type you are experiencing helps you address the root cause, instead of just fighting the symptom over and over again. Let me break down the different phases of laziness for you. First, fear-based laziness. You avoid tasks because starting means risking failure, judgment, or discovering you are not as capable as you thought. This often shows up as procrastination disguised as laziness. You tell yourself I will do it later when you really mean I am scared to do it now. Then there is overwhelm-induced laziness. The task feels too big, too complex, too unclear. Your brain literally does not know where to start, so it chooses not to start at all. This is really common in perfectionists who cannot break down big projects into manageable steps. They see the mountain and forget about the trail. Energy deficit laziness is another big one. Your body and brain genuinely do not have the resources to take action. Poor sleep, inadequate nutrition, chronic stress, or underlying health issues deplete your energy reserves. What looks like laziness is actually exhaustion, and you cannot willpower your way through exhaustion. Meaning vacuum laziness is when the task does not align with your values or goals. Your subconscious knows this work does not matter to you, so it refuses to generate motivation. This is why you can be quote-unquote lazy about your job, but incredibly energetic about your hobbies. It is not about capacity, it is about meaning. And finally, habit pattern laziness. You have trained your brain through repetition that inaction is your default response. Neural pathways for procrastination and avoidance are stronger than pathways for action. But here is the good news. This is purely behavioral and very fixable. Each type requires a different approach to overcome laziness effectively. Generic advice like just do it or be more disciplined fails because it does not address the specific mechanism keeping you stuck. It is like trying to fix a car engine by just telling it to run better. You have got to look under the hood. So let us talk about the foundation, because here is something Western productivity culture often ignores, but Eastern wisdom has understood for millennia. You cannot think your way out of an energy problem. If your body is depleted, your brain is foggy, and your nervous system is dysregulated, no amount of motivation will create sustainable action. You might force yourself to work for a day or two through sheer willpower, and I have done this so many times, but you will crash hard and return to laziness as your body demands recovery. This is why the first strategy to overcome laziness is not about discipline or motivation. It is about rebuilding your foundational energy. Let us start with sleep. I know you have heard this before. Everyone tells you to sleep more. Your doctor, your mom, every health article ever written. But let me be specific about why this matters for overcoming laziness. When you are sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, that is the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and sustained effort, it essentially goes offline. You are left operating primarily from your limbic system, the emotional, reactive part of your brain that prioritizes immediate comfort over long-term goals. In this state, of course, you feel lazy. Your brain literally lacks the cognitive resources to choose difficult action over easy distraction. In my own life, I noticed that on nights when I slept less than 7 hours, my entire next day felt like swimming through mud. Tasks that normally took 30 minutes stretched to 2 hours. What I thought was laziness, what I beat myself up over, was actually cognitive impairment from sleep deprivation. The solution is not complicated, but it requires commitment. Establish a consistent sleep schedule. Same bedtime, same wake time, even on weekends. I know, weekends too. Your body's circadian rhythm thrives on predictability. Create a wind-down routine that signals to your brain that sleep is approaching. No screens 30 minutes before bed. Lower the lights. Do something calming like reading or stretching. Make your bedroom a sleep sanctuary, dark, cool, quiet, and reserved only for sleep and intimacy. If you struggle with sleep despite these changes, treat it as a serious problem worth solving. Talk to a doctor. Consider a sleep study. Address underlying anxiety or sleep disorders. You cannot overcome laziness long-term without addressing sleep first. It is the foundation everything else is built on. Now let us talk about movement, because here is a paradox that confuses many people. You need energy to exercise, but exercise creates energy. How does that work? When you feel lazy, your instinct is to conserve energy by staying still. Just sit there, do not move, save your energy. But physical stillness actually perpetuates the low energy state. Movement increases blood flow, delivers oxygen to your brain, releases endorphins and dopamine, and signals to your body that it is time to be alert and active. I am not talking about intense workouts here. I am not saying you need to go run a marathon or lift heavy weights at the gym. I am talking about any movement at all. Stand up and stretch for 2 minutes. Walk around your house or apartment. Do 10 jumping jacks. Dance to one song that you love. The specific activity matters less than breaking the pattern of stillness. In traditional Chinese medicine, which I learned about growing up, stagnation is considered the root of many problems, physical, mental, and emotional. When qi, or energy, is not flowing, everything feels harder. Movement is the fastest way to restore flow. Make movement non-negotiable in your daily routine. Not exercise necessarily, but movement. Walk for 20 minutes every day. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Park farther away from the store entrance. Stand while working for part of your day. The cumulative effect on your baseline energy is profound, and you will feel the difference within days. And nutrition. We have to talk about nutrition. Your brain is only 2% of your body weight, but consumes 20% of your energy. 20%. What you eat directly impacts your cognitive function, mood stability, and sustained energy throughout the day. When I ate a diet heavy in refined carbohydrates and sugar, I experienced dramatic energy crashes every afternoon like clockwork. What I interpreted as laziness, what I called being lazy in the afternoon, was actually blood sugar crashes, followed by my body demanding rest to stabilize. The fix is not complicated. Prioritize protein and healthy fats, especially in your first meal of the day. These macronutrients provide stable, sustained energy without the crashes that come from carb-heavy meals. Minimize processed foods, excessive sugar, and foods that trigger inflammation in your body. The post-meal energy slump you experience is not laziness. It is your body diverting resources to digestion and managing inflammatory responses. Stay hydrated. Even mild dehydration impairs cognitive function and increases fatigue. Most people walk around chronically underhydrated and wonder why they feel sluggish all the time. Now here is one of the most powerful insights from modern behavioral psychology. Your environment shapes your behavior far more than your intentions do. You can have the strongest willpower in the world. You can be the most disciplined person you know. But if your environment is designed for distraction and comfort, you will default to laziness. Conversely, if your environment is designed for action, even weak willpower will produce results. This concept aligns beautifully with the Eastern principle of Wu Wei, effortless action. Instead of constantly fighting against your environment, you design it so that the right actions flow naturally like water following the path of least resistance. Let me explain what I call the principle of activation energy. Every action requires a certain amount of activation energy, the initial effort needed to start. When you learn how to overcome laziness, you are really learning how to lower the activation energy required for productive actions and raise it for unproductive ones. Right now, scrolling through your phone probably requires almost zero activation energy. Your phone is next to you. It is unlocked with face recognition. Apps load instantly. Dopamine hits arrive within seconds. The path from impulse to reward is completely frictionless. Meanwhile, starting that important project requires significant activation energy. You need to open your laptop, find the right files, remember where you left off, overcome the initial mental resistance, and push through the discomfort of beginning. No wonder you default to your phone. The solution is to reverse this equation. Make your productive actions easier to start. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Put your running shoes by the door where you will see them first thing. Eliminate every small decision and obstacle between waking up and starting your workout. Simultaneously, make unproductive actions harder. Put your phone in another room while you work. Delete social media apps from your phone. You can still access them via browser, but that extra friction reduces impulse usage by up to 80%. Cancel streaming subscriptions that tempt you into binge watching. Use website blockers during work hours. I applied this principle to my morning routine and it changed everything. Instead of keeping my phone on my nightstand where I would immediately check it upon waking, I started leaving it in my kitchen. To turn off my alarm, I had to get out of bed and walk to the kitchen. Once I was up and moving, starting my morning routine became effortless. That small environmental change eliminated my morning laziness entirely. I was not fighting my impulses with willpower. I redesigned my environment so the lazy option became harder than the productive one. Your environment is constantly sending signals to your brain about what actions are appropriate in that space. When you try to work from your bed, your brain receives conflicting signals. Your bed is associated with rest, sleep, and relaxation. You are asking your brain to override millions of repetitions that trained it to shut down in that space. That is not laziness, that is neural confusion. Create dedicated spaces for different activities if you can. A workspace that is only for work. A reading corner that is only for reading. Your bed only for sleep. These visual and spatial cues help your brain shift into the appropriate mode without requiring conscious effort. If you cannot create separate physical spaces, maybe you live in a small apartment or a dorm room, create distinct visual cues. When it is time to work, clear your desk completely except for what you need for that specific task. Use specific lighting, bright, cool-toned light for focus work, warm light for relaxation. Play specific music or ambient sounds that signal work mode. I have a specific playlist I only listen to when writing. My brain has learned that when that music plays, it is time to write. I no longer need to summon motivation. The environmental cue triggers the behavior automatically like muscle memory. Here is a truth that Eastern martial arts traditions understand deeply. Comfort is not your friend. Not because suffering is virtuous or because you need to punish yourself, but because growth lives on the other side of discomfort. When you avoid discomfort, you train your brain that discomfort is dangerous and must be escaped immediately. This creates an ever-shrinking comfort zone. Eventually, even minor challenges feel overwhelming, and you experience this as laziness. The Western equivalent of this insight comes from research on psychological flexibility and distress tolerance. People who can sit with discomfort without immediately seeking relief, they develop greater resilience, persistence, and ultimately achievement. The next time you feel that resistance, that I do not want to feeling that we label as laziness, try this instead of judging it or fighting it. Get curious about it. Ask yourself, what is this discomfort trying to tell me? Sometimes it is telling you that you are afraid of failing. Sometimes it is telling you that this task is not actually aligned with your values. Sometimes it is just telling you that starting is hard but continuing will be easier. I remember when I started writing the article this episode is based on, I felt immense resistance. Everything in me wanted to do something else. Check email, scroll social media, reorganize my desk, anything but write. Instead of calling myself lazy and forcing myself to write through gritted teeth, I got curious. What is this resistance about? I realized I was afraid this article would not be good enough, that my insights would not be valuable, that people would judge me. That fear was masquerading as laziness, wearing a disguise. Once I identified the fear, I could address it directly. Even if this article is not perfect, it will help someone. Done is better than perfect. The resistance dissolved almost immediately. Not because I became suddenly disciplined, but because I addressed the actual problem instead of fighting a symptom. One of the most practical tools for learning how to overcome laziness comes from James Clear and his book, Atomic Habits, but its wisdom echoes ancient practices of starting small. The rule is simple. When you feel resistance to starting a task, commit to doing just 2 minutes of it. Not 2 minutes as a minimum with the expectation of continuing. Genuinely just 2 minutes. After 2 minutes you have full permission to stop. No guilt, no shame. What happens is remarkable. About 80% of the time, once you start you continue beyond 2 minutes, because starting was the only real obstacle. The activation energy required to continue is much lower than the energy required to start. But even when you stop after 2 minutes, you have accomplished something important. You have proven to your brain that you can start despite resistance. You are building a neural pathway that says discomfort does not have to stop me. I use this for exercise, writing, cleaning, anything I feel resistant to. I will just put on my workout clothes and do 2 minutes. I will just write 1 paragraph. I will just clean this 1 corner. Most of the time I continue. But even when I do not, I have weakened the association between that task and avoidance. Over weeks and months the resistance diminishes entirely until it almost disappears. In both Eastern philosophy and Western existential psychology, there is a recognition that human beings need meaning to generate sustained action. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and wrote about his experience, famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When you do not have a clear, compelling reason for doing something, your brain treats it as optional. And when something is optional, laziness wins every single time. I see this pattern constantly in people struggling with laziness. They have goals, but the goals are vague, inherited from others, or disconnected from their deeper values. I should exercise more. I need to be more productive. I ought to work on this project. Should, need, ought. This is the language of obligation without meaning. Compare that to, I exercise because I want to be present and energetic for my children as they grow up. I am building this business because financial freedom means I can spend my days creating instead of surviving. I am learning this skill because mastery itself brings me joy. When you connect actions to meaning, you do not need to overcome laziness. You feel pulled toward action naturally like gravity. Here is an exercise I want you to do this week. Take the goals or tasks you have been avoiding. For each one, complete this sentence. This matters because. And then keep asking why until you reach something that genuinely resonates emotionally, not just intellectually. For example, I want to launch this business. Why? To make money. Why does money matter? To have financial security. Why does that matter? So I do not have to worry about money and can focus on what I love. Why does that matter? Because I have spent too much of my life stressed and surviving instead of living fully. I want to experience freedom. Now you have reached something meaningful. Financial freedom is not about money, it is about living fully instead of just surviving. When you connect your daily actions to this deeper purpose, laziness diminishes dramatically. You are not trying to be productive, you are taking actions that align with your desire to live fully. And if you complete this exercise and realize a goal does not connect to anything meaningful, congratulations. You have just identified why you feel lazy about it. Maybe that goal is not actually yours. Maybe it is time to let it go and redirect your energy toward what genuinely matters. Eastern philosophy emphasizes Wu Wei, doing without forcing, flowing with natural rhythms rather than against them. Western productivity science emphasizes matching task difficulty to your energy levels and cognitive capacity. Both are saying the same thing. Stop trying to force yourself to do hard tasks when you are in a low energy state. One of the biggest reasons people experience chronic laziness is misalignment between their energy levels and task demands. You try to do your most cognitively demanding work at 3 p.m. when your brain is naturally in a post-lunch slump. Of course you feel lazy. You are swimming against your natural rhythm, against the current. Here's what I want you to do. For 1 week, track your energy levels every 2 hours. Rate yourself 1 to 10 on physical energy, mental clarity, and motivation. Do this without trying to change anything, just observe like a scientist studying yourself. Most people discover clear patterns. Maybe you are sharpest between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Maybe you get a second wind around 7 p.m. Maybe you are utterly useless between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Once you identify your patterns, redesign your schedule to flow with them instead of against them. Do your most important cognitively demanding work during your peak energy windows. Do routine low-stakes tasks during your valleys. Rest during your deepest slumps rather than fighting them. I discovered my peak clarity happens between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. That is when I write, strategize, and make important decisions. By 2 p.m. my brain wants easy routine tasks. So I answer emails, organize files, and do administrative work. I stopped trying to write in the afternoon, which I had labeled as afternoon laziness. It was not laziness, it was misalignment with my natural rhythm. Another major obstacle disguised as laziness is task granularity. Your to-do list says launch website. That is not a task. That is a project containing dozens of tasks. Your brain looks at it, feels overwhelmed, and chooses avoidance. The rule: if a task takes more than 30 minutes or requires multiple steps, it is too big, break it down. Launch website becomes, choose website platform 15 minutes, purchase domain 5 minutes, select template 20 minutes, write homepage copy 30 minutes, upload logo 5 minutes. Suddenly, instead of one overwhelming task, you have 5 manageable ones. You can start with just one. Completing it gives you momentum for the next. In Chinese philosophy, there is a concept: a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We understand this intellectually, but we fail to apply it practically. We try to take 50 steps simultaneously, and wonder why we do not move forward. Single steps, ridiculously small, that is how you overcome laziness consistently. Western psychology has spent decades studying habit formation. The conclusion? Small, consistent actions compound into transformative results. But consistency requires systems, not motivation. In Zen Buddhism, there is emphasis on daily practice, zazen, meditation, mindful routines, not because any single day's practice is transformative, but because the accumulation over years creates fundamental change. Both traditions point to the same insight. You do not need massive action. You need consistent, repeated action. And that requires building habits, not relying on willpower. Your brain already runs hundreds of automatic behaviors every day. You do not decide to brush your teeth, you just do it after waking up. You do not consciously choose to make coffee, your body moves through the motions while your mind is elsewhere. These automated behaviors are prime anchors for new habits. The method is this: attach the new behavior you want, the one you have been too lazy to do, to an existing automatic behavior. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write 3 sentences in my journal. After I brush my teeth at night, I will lay out my workout clothes for tomorrow. After I close my laptop for the day, I will walk for 10 minutes. The existing habit triggers the new one. No motivation required. No decision fatigue. Just automatic execution like clockwork. I wanted to build a daily meditation practice, but kept forgetting or not having time, both manifestations of laziness. I attached it to my coffee routine. After I start the coffee maker, I will sit and meditate while it brews. Now 5 years later, I meditate every morning without thinking about it. The coffee maker triggers the behavior automatically. You will miss days. Life happens. You get sick. Emergencies arise. That is not failure. That is being human. The critical rule for overcoming laziness long-term: never miss twice in a row. Missing once is an exception. Missing twice is the beginning of a new pattern, the pattern of quitting. When you miss a day, your absolute priority the next day is getting back on track, even if you do the minimum version. This prevents the shame spiral that often accompanies falling off the wagon and ensures one slip does not become a complete collapse. I have maintained a daily writing habit for 3 years using this rule. I have missed days, travel, illness, unexpected crises, but I have never missed 2 days in a row. That consistency has produced more output than I would have imagined possible, all without relying on motivation or fighting laziness. Sometimes what appears as laziness is actually fear, perfectionism, or self-sabotage. These require psychological work, not productivity hacks. Most people recognize fear of failure. If you do not try, you cannot fail. If you try half-heartedly, you have an excuse when it does not work out. I was lazy hurts less than I tried my best, and it was not good enough. Less recognized but equally powerful is fear of success. What if you succeed and then cannot maintain it? What if success brings responsibilities you do not want? What if achieving this goal means losing excuses you have relied on? I spent years being lazy about launching my business. I told myself I did not have time, did not know enough, was not ready. The truth? I was terrified. Success would mean visibility, judgment, and responsibility. Failure would mean confirming my deepest fear, that I was not capable. Staying lazy kept me safe from both outcomes. The breakthrough came when I realized I was going to feel fear either way. I could feel fear while staying stuck, or feel fear while moving forward. Only one of those options had the possibility of growth. Here's something that might surprise you. Beating yourself up for being lazy makes laziness worse, not better. Research by Kristen Neff and others on self-compassion shows that people who treat themselves with kindness after setbacks, they recover faster and persist longer than those who engage in self-criticism. When you call yourself lazy, stupid, undisciplined, all those harsh labels, you trigger shame. Shame is physiologically similar to threat. Your nervous system activates defense mechanisms. One of those mechanisms is avoidance, which looks exactly like laziness. The alternative is not self-indulgence or making excuses. It is self-compassion coupled with accountability. I did not work on my project today. That is disappointing, and I want to understand why so I can do better tomorrow. Let me be curious about what got in the way instead of beating myself up. This approach creates psychological safety, which allows your brain to problem solve instead of defend. In my own journey to overcome laziness, the shift from self-criticism to self-compassion was transformative. When I stopped calling myself lazy and started asking what is making this hard right now, I could address actual obstacles instead of fighting an imaginary character flaw. Humans are deeply social creatures. We are wired to care about how others perceive us and to align our behavior with group norms. Strategically leveraged, social dynamics are powerful tools for overcoming laziness. Find one person who is also working on overcoming laziness in their own way. Not someone to compete with, but someone to check in with regularly. The structure: every week you each share what you committed to doing and whether you did it. No judgment, just facts. Then you set intentions for the next week. The magic is not in the partner motivating you. It is in the simple fact that you will have to report your behavior to another person. That social awareness shifts your decision-making in the moment. Do I want to tell my accountability partner I skipped my workout again? Often that thought is enough to get you moving. There is robust research showing that making a public commitment significantly increases follow-through. When others know your intentions, the social cost of failing increases, which motivates action. Share your goals on social media. Tell your friends and family what you are working on. Join online communities where people are pursuing similar goals, and regularly update your progress. The key is making it specific and time-bound. I am going to be more productive does not create accountability. I am writing 500 words every day for 30 days starting tomorrow, that does. Your brain is fundamentally a prediction machine that seeks rewards. When it predicts an action will lead to reward, it generates motivation. When it does not predict reward, motivation disappears, and you experience this as laziness. The problem with most meaningful goals is that rewards are delayed. You work out today but will not see visible results for months. You write today but will not publish a book for years. Your brain struggles to generate motivation for abstract, distant rewards. The solution is to hack your reward system by creating immediate, tangible rewards for desired behaviors. After completing a task you typically avoid, give yourself an immediate, specific reward. Not "I will feel good about myself," that is too abstract, but something concrete and immediate. Finished your workout? Enjoy your favorite coffee beverage. Completed 2 hours of focused work? Watch one episode of your favorite show guilt-free. Wrote 1,000 words? Spend 30 minutes on a hobby you love. The reward does not have to be big. It just has to be immediate and reliable. Your brain will start associating the difficult task with the reward, making it easier to initiate action over time. Humans are highly visual creatures. Abstract progress does not motivate us nearly as much as visible, concrete progress. Use a physical calendar and mark an X for every day you complete your intended action. The visual chain of X's becomes reinforcing. You do not want to break the chain. Or use progress bars, checklists, before and after photos, anything that makes your progress visible and tangible. I track several habits on a wall calendar. Seeing months of consistency creates pride and momentum. On days when I feel lazy, I look at that calendar and think, I have done this 87 days in a row. I am not breaking that streak today. The visual evidence of past success motivates present action. You now have multiple strategies for overcoming laziness. The final challenge is integration, putting these into practice in a sustainable, personalized way. Do not try to implement everything at once. That is a recipe for overwhelm and failure. Instead, choose one strategy that resonates most strongly. Commit to practicing it for 30 days. Only after it becomes relatively automatic should you add another. Remember, you are not trying to become a productivity machine. You are trying to reconnect with your natural capacity for action, creativity, and growth. That capacity is already within you. Laziness is just a signal that something is misaligned: your energy, your environment, your beliefs, your goals, or your approach. One practice that ties everything together is a weekly review. Every week, take 30 minutes to reflect. What went well this week? Where did I successfully overcome laziness? What did not go well? Where did laziness win? What patterns do I notice? What one adjustment will I make next week? This practice creates a feedback loop of continuous improvement. You are not relying on willpower or motivation. You are building a system that learns and adapts. In Zen practice, there is a concept called shoshin, beginner's mind. Approaching each week with curiosity rather than judgment allows you to learn from experience, instead of repeating the same patterns over and over. Sometimes what appears as laziness is actually depression, anxiety, ADHD, chronic fatigue, or other medical conditions. If you have implemented these strategies consistently for several months and still struggle with persistent, debilitating inaction, please talk to a healthcare provider. There is no shame in needing support. Some challenges require professional intervention, not just better strategies. Learning how to overcome laziness is not about becoming someone who never feels resistance or struggles with motivation. It is about building systems, practices, and mindsets that allow you to move forward despite those feelings. It is about understanding that what you call laziness is often fear, overwhelm, misalignment, or depleted energy, all of which are addressable. It is about designing your environment, managing your energy, clarifying your purpose, building habits, and treating yourself with compassion when you stumble. Most importantly, it is about recognizing that you are not fundamentally lazy. You are human. And being human means sometimes you will struggle, sometimes you will avoid, sometimes you will choose comfort over challenge. That is okay. The goal is not perfection. It is progress. It is building a life where action flows more naturally, where you spend less time fighting yourself and more time creating, growing, and contributing. On the path of those who live fully, you will not find perfect discipline or endless motivation. But you will find people who learned how to overcome laziness, not through willpower alone, but through understanding themselves deeply and designing lives that support their growth, rather than fighting against their nature. You can be one of those people. Starting today. Starting small. Starting with just one strategy, one practice, one tiny step forward. The path is yours to walk, and I believe you will. And that brings us to the close of today's episode. Champions. I hope something we talked about today sparked something in you, something you can immediately put into action to transform not just your productivity, but your entire relationship with taking action. If this episode resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our Tuesday morning conversations. And hey, share this episode with someone who is ready to break free from laziness, someone who needs to hear that change is possible through small, consistent actions. When we lift each other up, we all rise together. Now, as always, I have put together all the resources we discussed today in the video description below. You will find implementation guides, energy tracking templates, habit-building frameworks, everything you need to actually execute on these strategies and start overcoming laziness for good. And if you want to dive even deeper into your personal growth journey, I have written 3 books available on Amazon Kindle. The Focus Unleashed, The Death of Fear, and The Procrastination Killers. Each one complements what we talk about here on the podcast and can accelerate your transformation. Check them out, give them a read, and let me know what you think. Again, thank you so much for spending this time with me today, champions. Thank you for investing in yourself. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being willing to do the work. I am Zeep Pham, and I am honored to be your companion on this path of life transformation. Until next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern, stay intentional, stay consistent, and keep becoming the person you are meant to be. You have got this, champion.